Hello, Saratoga. This is the Saratoga podcast. I am Dan D. Federicis here with my friend Adam Israel. Robin Dalton, who is our third co host, is just finishing up a travel schedule and she cannot join us today. Adam, speaking of travel schedules, you had a very robust one in August. You spent, I would say, more than half the month, probably 3 weeks, I'm guessing, in Poland and the Ukraine. And you just got back not too many days ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've been back about a week now, just long enough to get over the jet lag. So
Okay.
I had a good night's sleep last 2 nights, but before that, it was a little touch and go. So
Now we did talk about it on last week's show. Could you just briefly give an overview of your trip, an overview of how the Ukraine is doing, and even Poland with all the refugees and so forth?
yeah, so the trip was amazing. Did a lot of neat things. We spent the night at a refugee camp, which was really insightful to see how just life is for the average refugee. We're planning right now, the end of summer, everybody's getting back to school, but we want to go again. It's just fundraising. So we're planning events sometime this fall to try to fundraise and go back over and help people. But one thing I do want to talk about that's going on in Ukraine right now is the Ukraine is conducting a massive counteroffensive in the southern part of the country. I've talked to a lot of people. I have a lot of friends actually there who are fighting now. And one person described it as World War I with drones dropping bombs on you. For weeks now, for months, both sides have been dug in. Russia has been making slight gains here or there, but it's been mainly a stalemate. And so Ukraine publicized and Russia has acknowledged that this counteroffensive that's going on in the south. And what Ukraine did was take American weapons donated from America, particularly the HIMARS, which have a long range and are extremely accurate. And they took this large swath of land in the south, and they essentially cut all the bridges from the South Crimea area to this area that's currently occupied by Russia. Essentially, they've cut all these troops off, and thousands of troops in this large area of Ukraine from getting any meaningful reinforcements or supplies. And they've been doing that for the last month with these shells. They yelled charge and they let the troops go. So I'm really excited for the country of Ukraine and really kind of hopeful because this offensive is going to show a lot as far as Ukraine's opportunities to actually not only survive Russia but kick them out. So that's what's going on in Ukraine. But Dan, this is talking Saratoga, not talking internationally. So let's get to it. There was a stabbing. Another stabbing that happened outside of the club Nashville. It was last weekend, I believe. Dan, what's your insight into this?
Yeah, it occurred the late night hours, of course. It occurred in the back, actually, in the library parking lot, I believe, or very close to the library parking lot. If you're most viewers are familiar with those locations. The According to an article in the Schenectady Gazette, the victim was in stable condition. That information is 36 hours old, so hopefully it's even improved from there. And it is really bad. That happened on Travers Weekend. It's bad, whether it happens in February or Travers Weekend, but it's more notable that when it happens on Travers Weekend, I guess. And I don't want to beat up Jim Montanino, but he had some quotes in the Daily Gazette that were just kind of like you kind of wince when you read them because he didn't balance them properly. He needs to, when I was in unions and we talked to the press a lot, the words often came into my mouth. Hey, let me bounce something off you before I send this to the press or before I say this. I would talk to 3 or 4 people, and occasionally they'd say, Jesus, Dan, don't say it that way. I don't know that Jim's having those conversations before he says something or writes something. And it's a good thing to email, maybe he did here, email reporters. You get more control over your message that way. You don't get fired back questions where you blurt something out that you wish you could have back. But he said here, and I'm not going to beat him up for it. He seems like an earnest guy. But he needs to polish himself in certain areas. But he wrote, last I heard, he was in stable condition. Talking about the victim, the stabbing victim, of course. That was the lone incident. He said, overall, it was a spectacular and very peaceful time. And then later, he's quoted as saying, and we were remarkably safe. It's a wonderful thing, and I don't think it occurred by mere coincidence. Those comments have a other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? It was a stabbing. That was a bad occurrence. Now, I'm not saying we should droop our heads and cry doom and gloom, but you're spinning it too far the other way. You have to have some reserved statements like, we're very concerned with this grave incident. This should not happen. We're pleased that the rest of the city was safe and so forth, and we're happy about that, but we're very concerned for the victim and so forth. And he just needed to have a little more balance there. His statements using the word spectacular and wonderful when there's a stabbing, bad wording. Jim, bounce things off and email things to reporters. Not beating him up, just some friendly advice.
And that brings in that, this was something leading into this. That was what I was thinking about was, there's no love loss here for Jim. We sometimes call it as it is with him. We were very skeptical going into this racing season, but again, besides the stabbing, right? And so maybe the stabbing article is not the article for Jim to tout the success of the PD, but like we've had a pretty peaceful summer besides that, though. I mean,
and that was outside the city's control. The police department, as I understand, is doing a solid investigation. It was peaceful. We will know that. We won't take that away from the city. This was just an unfortunate incident that to me marred the weekend somewhat. I'm not going to overstate it, but I can't understate it either. It's a stabbing. That's bad.
Yeah, well, Jim, he referenced when the stabbings happened on Caroline Street, I think gangster rap, and that got caught.
Exactly.
So now actually, I was talking to some people who from Gaffney's who were saying, "Are we gonna ban country music now?" So, a side thought, but I will say this is that I think we are here to not push political agendas, but to call it as we see it, and department has done a pretty, the police departments are one of those entities where the less you hear about them, the better, right? You don't want to hear about, referees in a sports game, and you don't want to hear about your police department because they're doing their job. And we didn't hear much about them this summer. So, Jim, maybe it was by luck, maybe it was a happenstance, I don't know, but he did, the police department, we have 1 week left, but they minus the stabbing, but it was without a major incident.
Yeah, and this is an understaffed police department that's probably exhausted at this point, August 31st. So I absolutely do give them applause for the entire summer, just doing an effective job of policing the city. That stabbing incident has nothing to do with any failure of the city or the police department. That unfortunate is, we have that many people in that many bars, alcohol. These things do happen. We have to eliminate them, take every step to try to eliminate them. But some of that is out of the control.
Yeah, and sticking on with our police department, Saratoga BLM is holding, it's either today or tomorrow, a vigil again for Daryl Mount, and they're signing a petition, saying that 30,000 people want to know, how was Daryl Mount killed? This is a little perplexing to me because they're keeping this narrative going that somehow the Saratoga Springs Police Department acted in a way that unjustly or unlawfully led to Daryl Mount's death. Dan, what are your thoughts? Is this something that should be put to rest, or?
Well, don't look now, but in November the trial is set for the estate of Daryl Mount is suing the city, claiming just that. And back when it was first announced, probably January, it seemed like it was so far off, folks. That's a little over 2 months away. I am bothered by it. I don't think there is a story there. At least there's a story there, but not that the police department did anything wrong. We've said on here several times what they did after his unfortunate death, and it is a sad death. He's a human being. That you and I and Robin have agreed several times that we just wish that didn't happen. But as Jim Montanino, and he did a great report. It was one of the first things he did in office. He did a superb report outlining as he saw it, and he used evidence and court documents and other things. And he basically said it was Daryl Mount's own actions that caused his death. Now, what happened afterwards, I will acknowledge the police department did not shine as far as not doing a proper investigation or maybe any investigation. That I will acknowledge. But I know in my heart they did not do anything wrong that evening. And Daryl made some decisions. Mr. Mount made some decisions that unfortunately ultimately led to the end of his life many months after that.
Yeah, for me, again, it just bothers me how callously some people can label human beings. in our police department who listen, I'm not going to say they're not without fault. But what happens is when you keep the spotlight, it's like crying wolf. When you cry wolf for every action our police department does, you miss the places where reform is needed. And this was something that would be good to talk about with Robin, was being the ex-commissioner of public safety. But for instance, arresting the protesters as they were walking into City Hall. I think that's I know Robin made some good points, and there's an interesting conversation there, but that's something we should talk about. Or they followed a young lady home from one of these protests. Now, again, I believe, we're both Constitution-loving Americans. We believe in people's right to assemble and in free speech. As far as people's right to break the law in asserting their free speech, I think we that for. But regardless, if you're going to do, if somebody's protesting and the police follow them home and pull them over in their parking lot, I would think they better make damn sure that person committed a crime, and the police found nothing. So again, I don't want to rail on our police. I think 99.9% of the time they're great, but it is they have to be, it's a profession where you want 100% perfect. So I think these kind of events detract away from meaningful change, and they just alienate and separate people. But what do I know?
Well, you know a lot. You've lived here a long time, and very reasonable points you made. Something I'd like to note is a year ago, Saratoga Springs in just a year has become a very different place. We now have a very diverse city council, which we did not have a year ago. They were a good city council, but through no fault of their own, they weren't diverse. We have a civilian review board, which I have mixed feelings about. However, that was a city moving in a direction saying we need balance. We need to balance policing with accountability. And so I think to the extent that my point is there's a strong effort to be made. If there is any valid criticism on the police department, or no, I shouldn't say the police department, on the city as a whole, I reject that it was racist, that it is racist, or that it was. I reject that outright. But to the extent but they still could improve as a city, and I think we did.
Yeah. You know what, Dan? We really, especially two white guys sitting here, we'll just throw the invitation out. If somebody of a different ethnic background wants to come and talk to us about this, we encourage it with open minds. It won't be a gotcha thing, because I think we have to talk more about these kind of issues openly and educate each other. And right now, two white guys saying the city isn't racist, it's why it could be, we have valid points. It would be nice to get some diversity. So I
agree.
I think we'll throw this out there, an invitation to anybody, who wants to come and talk about experiences they've had with facing racism in the city. Because I'm not saying it doesn't exist, Dan. You're not either. It's certainly different growing up, black or brown, or in this country, or the city in this country, than it is, growing up looking like Dan and I. But we'll throw the invitation out there. So.
Yeah, and I got to say, yes, I have seen racist cops. Sadly, I've worked with racist cops. I became a trooper in 1987. That was 35 years ago. And you saw some old timers there that had really, really sickening words and attitudes and approaches to policing. I think the police of today are generally speaking a much better group. It's a new generation. Let me not say better. It's a different group, and certainly that there's much less racism in policing than there was when I started 35 years ago. That's not good enough, and I'm talking generally in policing. There should be zero racism in policing. Of course, we'll never get there, because we'll never get to zero racism in society, but we have to do our best to combat it.
Yeah. Yep. All right. I think it's a short but sweet show today, but we got City Hall.
Never short of topics.
And for those who we've had John Kaufman on this program before. He's a Democrat turned Saratoga Springs Democrat political committee, but he writes a blog, Saratoga Politics. It's a smart guy doing, Dan, what you and I try to do, right? I mean, he adds a lot of insight into what's going on. And his latest blog was Commissioner Shangvi She did a couple things. One thing is she created a position for an administrative assistant for the Commissioner of Finance office. The Commissioner of Finance didn't have an admin, so John Kaufman reported that this is going to cost the city with benefits roughly 70 grand a year. She did away with Commissioner Madigan had a position for a grants writer, which I got to tell you. Commissioner Madigan and I were friends. I talked with her during the campaign. I'll say I think this was my idea. She'll say she had the idea first, but doesn't matter. It was in her budget to have this grants writer, because grants is essentially it's free money for the city if you can get it, and it's not as easy as just checking a box. You have to apply for these grants, and then you have to properly administrate them. So there's a lot of work that goes into this. But at the end of the day, the ratio is the money spent the money gained would far exceed the money spent in having this position. So they did away with the grants writer position. They hired an administrative assistant. And then they put in $10,000 in a budget to redo the Commissioner of Finance office that was redone 2 years ago. Dan, what are your thoughts about all that?
Let me see if I just so I can clarify something. Not a dime has been spent yet. It's just been authorized. Is that correct on the furniture notion of things? If I read John's blog entry correctly?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Right. So you have a budget, you have line items. The money, municipality accounting says the money in the line item has to be used for that line item. So they took money out of a help desk technician line item and put it into a furniture line item for the Commissioner of Finance office.
Okay, well, let me say that there were two parts to John's blog post, both highly critical of Commissioner Sangvi. The second issue that we didn't get to yet, I will probably be more in agreement with him, but he's probably not going to be happy with me, and that's not my concern. Although I like John, I am not going to jump on the bandwagon of beating her up on this issue yet, because she has not responded, or she had a chance to respond. Granted, there's a reason for that, and that's the second issue. There may be valid reason for this. They haven't spent a dime yet. Money was transferred. Money can be transferred back. I don't know enough. It just felt like it was, let's pile on Commissioner Sangvi week. And I wasn't, at least on this first issue, and I will be critical on the second issue we'll bring up. I'm not, maybe I'll be there after she comes back and gives explanations. And if the explanations fall well short of what I think is acceptable for government and prudent spending and so forth, absolutely. But from what I've seen so far, she hasn't spent a dime yet. It's been authorized. Okay, that could be worthy of criticism, but I guess my point is it feels premature.
Yeah, I'm with you in the sense of I think the people I will be critical of is the Saratoga Springs voter. I mean, Commissioner Sangvi is, she's a full-time professor. She does not have the vested interest in Saratoga as far as living here as long, as other candidates like myself. So I think we Saratoga got what they got with her. She's a very competent, educated woman. She's very ambitious, but I think her ambitions are not to necessarily create the best Saratoga can be. It's like we talked about right now. She is on a book tour in India, but I'll finish my thought, then we'll circle back to that. But she is she is stretched thin. She needs the help, I'm sure, with the Commissioner of Finance. The job pays $14,000 a year, not a job that many people could take without a second job. And so this is what you can get: somebody who wants artwork for their office and needs an administrative assistant, and Saratogians have to pay for that, but that's who they voted for. So that's what they got. But circling back to what you were saying, John Kaufman did, because Manita has not given an explanation yet of what this money is going to be used for. And John Kaufman emailed her, and he got an email back from her saying she is out of the office and will not be responding to emails. And she'll be out to August 30th, and to contact her deputy. So is that what you're talking about, Dan, where you'll be a little critical of her?
It was an auto reply, right? And the trip that she's taken. Yeah. When we get to that, let's acknowledge she's done some good things in her short time in office. I thought that participatory budgeting was a great move. And really a strong Democratic small D thing to do. I mean, I've been impressed with some things. And then, but going to, when you're ready, I don't want to jump the gun here. When you're ready to talk about her lengthy absence.
That's where we're going.
Yeah. I agree that when I was first elected Troopers PBA president, It was a rough time for me personally, and I had an invitation to go with a couple friends to Brazil. Right, cool trip. Right, I was in office a few months already, but the troopers didn't have a contract. How the optics of me going to Brazil or Oklahoma for that matter, this was before we could be so connected on the internet and so forth. That would have been horrible. I held an office. And so I didn't do it. I regret it to this day, at least from the opportunity loss, but it was the right decision to make. I had a responsibility. So for her to leave for such a lengthy period of time, it's one thing to leave, but now you can leave and still be connected, and some people might not even know the difference. But she's just not connected, clearly so, and her assistant is at least in some cases, in John Coughlin's case, not responding to emails when she says try Miss Crocker. That is a large mistake in her early, in the first half of her term, and I will be critical of her for that. I think that was a mistake. Granted that they pay 14 grand a year, but she took the job. And as you pointed out, as Commissioner Madigan pointed out, it's budget season. But again, let me point out there was a bit of piling on, maybe not a bit of piling on, John's blog post, and I'm a fan of John's. But he points out that she's writing not just a romance novel, and she's promoting a gay romance novel. Was there a reason to point out it was a gay romance novel? Did it require such, John? Did it require such specificity? I don't know. I just thought it was piling on her. And I'm generally a fan. She made a mistake. She's human. I can probably, if someone else ran against her, I'll make an honest assessment this time next year.
Yeah. My thought, again, it goes back to Saratoga got what they paid for. When I was running for that office, I always said it was a resume builder. And I think for Commissioner Shangbee and I, it was both resume builders, that position. But for me, it was a legacy resume builder. I grew up in the city. My father was active in a lot of development and a lot of historic restoration. I knew if I didn't know the commissioners, I knew all their names. And it was, for me, it was a legacy of something that I wanted to give back to the city. I think, again, Commissioner Shangbee she's very ambitious. She has very lofty goals, I think, set for her professional career. And I think this is an actual resume builder that whatever wherever her life takes her next, she could put this on her resume that, she won this office, and good for her. Again, I'm not bashing her for how she won it. Elections are very results oriented. You get the most votes, you win. She did that. She was the victor. But at Saratoga, this is now, you have a commissioner who is spending money on admins and going to India during budget season. And certainly I think it's not going to be to a big detriment of the city, but some of these things obviously are not in the city's best interest. So
I am in a position where I can't plug in. My battery is rapidly dying. Can we at least jump to?
I'm gonna get to the track, baby.
Cheers and cheers. Okay, good. Thank you. I didn't mean to cut you short, but I'm about to disappear from the screen here. I'll quickly, if that happens, you got to close it out. Quickly give some cheers and jeers here. A jeer to the end of summer. It's almost here. Labor Day. The joke is the Travers happens and it's 15 minutes till Christmas. I'm on one hand, I'm sad to see summer go. Now my cheer is to the end of summer. Folks, I'm exhausted. This summer's been exhausting for me personally. I want the kids back in school. I want structure. So I want my cake and eat it too. I want endless summer. I just don't want the endless summer schedule. Okay. We took not by our design, but we took 3 trips in 3 weeks. One of those was a family emergency trip. It just knocked the crap out of me. I was exhausted. You talk about jet lag. Obviously you had a more intense trips than I did, so I can understand it. For the past week you were that way, but I'm ready. I'm not ready for summer to end, but I am ready for some structure, and that in my life involves the kids going to school.
All right, so my cheer is to the Saratoga Springs Department of Public Works. I don't know if you guys have seen these wasps, but it seems like there's wasps all over Saratoga. It's unbelievable. Everywhere I go, there's wasps. And I'm the president of the Pop Warner Football. I think I said that, but we had practice and we had cheerleaders getting stung. We had football players getting stung.
Wasps, not bees.
I think they're. I mean, they look like bees, but they're not honeybees, right? What are those?
Okay.
So they look like bees, but they're not collecting pollen.
Yeah, like some people call them carpenter bees, maybe, or something.
Maybe
Yes, yeah, they are all over the place. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, they're nasty little buggers. And I emailed Joe O'Neill from DPW, Jason Golub's deputy. And I have no special relationship with him. I've chatted with him a couple times, but emailed him at like 6:15 on a Tuesday night. By 6:45, somebody from DPW was at the field, walking around, identifying where we can, what we can do to mitigate the risks of these wasps. So cheers to them. It was just great. It was great to see our city government in action and responding like that. And then cheers to these damn carpenter wasps. I don't know where they came from, but this year they seem especially bad. But go home. We had the bug. It's like the 7 plagues here. We had those caterpillars, and now these wasps or carpenter.
Yeah.
Hopefully, here's to a calm spring.
Well, someone brought up No Mow May have brought us this in August. I don't know. I think the No Mow May was a wonderfully environmentally sound thing to do, but you can't help but wonder.
Yeah,
the bees were allowed to do their thing, and now there's a lot of them.
Yeah, and I know I'm proposing a no rake September and October. Why not, huh?
Wait, you're proposing what?
A no rake September and October. If it doesn't rake, it's all the same.
I've been following that for years. I don't get to it till November anyway.
All right, Dan, short and sweet. Good show. It was nice talking to you.
Excellent. Good talking to you as well. I'm glad to see you back. And we got to get Robin together. Robin will be back with us next week, folks. We are sticking. We were a little late this morning. We had some technological difficulties, but we're generally sticking to 12 o'clock on Wednesday. So please pencil it in for next week.
Stay charming, Saratoga.
Thanks for watching, folks. Take care.